Welcome into Pro Football Today. It's time for the post-game show. Kasey Hudson and Tom Vecchio to walk you through this Monday Night Football matchup as the Saints fall short to the Kansas City Chiefs 26-13. Carr goes out with an injury. A number of bang-ups take place, but still plenty to get into as the Chiefs actually pulled off a pretty decent win there. We saw some of that backyard football that's exciting to watch. We saw some trick plays. We saw a number of things. Most importantly, Tom, what did you see in this matchup?
Relatively straightforward game plan from the Chiefs. A lot of Kareem Hunt, a lot of Kelce, a lot of Juju Smith-Schuster, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. Getting some other players involved. And ultimately, this is probably what it's going to be from the Chiefs moving forward. A little bit of McCole Hardman, a little bit of Xavier Worthy. Like, everyone has to do just a little bit more. I still think the focal points of the offense will be Kareem Hunt and Kelce. I don't think we should be expecting 100-plus yards out of Juju on a week-in and week-out basis, but Worthy will have his time instead of Juju, and then the next game it'll be Juju instead of Worthy. I think that's what we're going to be focusing in on. It's going to be Hunt, Kelce, and then kind of everyone else taking a little bit of a step forward. We saw some other tight ends like Noah Gray getting involved. Really straightforward stuff, essentially, from the Chiefs. On the other side, with Derek Carr now being hurt, the Saints and their entire season trajectory, as I kind of said at halftime, is completely thrown out of balance. They're now looking at a divisional opponent who is well rested, ready to come out and pick up a win after kind of a disappointing end to their last game. They have to figure out what's wrong with Carr and kind of stem the flooding that's going on, because their season is in the balance right now. It does not look good.
Yeah, and that's going to be majorly problematic if they can't figure out what the backup's going to be there when it comes to Carr. They've never really secured a proper QB2 to help them out, get the job done, so we'll see what takes place there. But as you mentioned, versatility when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs, some good work for Worthy. We'll see what we can expect down the pipeline here. Another big game from Travis Kelce, but still plenty to get into here on Pro Football Today, the post-game show with Kasey and Tom, so don't go anywhere. Stick with us on the other side of this quick break.
Sunday Night Football, not really much of a matchup here, and the Bills looked so good up until this point, and, to me, it's probably like a one-off for them.
The basic thing you have to do against the Ravens, force them to pass and try to use their weapons downfield, get them behind, because if you can do that, then it takes Derrick Henry a little bit out of the game. But if you get them with momentum coming out of the gate, getting a long touchdown run of the first play.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
I do a sliding DiVincenzo to the what? Obviously, Terrence Jennings Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I do think they come back, and I think they win this game, but they've got to do it decisively. I think they've got to get that confidence back, because they went out there, and like I said earlier, Kentucky almost beat Georgia. Kentucky almost did beat Ole Miss, and I think what you're going to see in this conference, if you don't play well and you're a top 10 team in the SEC, you're going to get knocked out by one of those top 25 teams in the SEC if you're not ready to play.
Powered by SportsGrid.
are watching Pro Football Today, the post-game show with Kasey Hudson and Tom Vecchio here on SportsGrid TV. And in case you missed that ending, Chiefs stomp out 26-13. Pretty consistent, simple game that they were able to run the script on. But again, you got to see some exciting backyard football that you can expect out of the Chiefs. When it comes to the numbers, 331 passing yards for Patrick Mahomes, 1 interception, no passing touchdowns. It was a big game for Hunt, which means that our friend Tom here did get a chance to cash in on some big things there. 102 rushing yards on the ground, 1 touchdown for him through 28 carries. And then when it came to the receiving group, it was Schuster topping the charts. 7 receptions, 130 yards. And it's Travis Kelce shortly behind him. And I will say, I did not have to eat crow, but Tom, let's talk about your winning card for the night and some other things that you saw or probably angles that you might move forward for when it comes to props for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, so overall, the big miss that I had was Justin Watson. I had him over 24.5 receiving yards. I'm looking at some of his halftime numbers. He played on 36 of the snaps in the first half out of their 46 plays. Did not see any targets the entire game. I'll have to see what he played in the second half, but ultimately that doesn't matter because he didn't have any targets at all. So a loss there. Pick up the win on Hunt over 42.5. Pick up the win on Carr under 31.5 passing attempts. And then the same game parlay from the pregame show that we did, that one. Hunt over 42.5. Hunt touchdown, and Alvin Kamara over 33.5 receiving yards. Actually, it was Hunt 40+. If we have that graphic, 40+ receiving, and that was around, I think, 3.8 plus 3.80 or so. So 2 out of 3 on the straight props. An SGP win is good to see. For the Chiefs side of things, again, seeing some of these secondary players being involved on a week in and week out basis, seeing good stuff. Yeah, that's the SGP there. Hunt touchdown. Here we go. Hunt touchdown. Hunt 40+, and Kamara 30 over 33. So nice SGP win at plus 385. That's good to see. Some of the secondary options for the Chiefs, as I will continuously say, that's going to be where the value is going to be. Hunt's line at 42.5 this week. It's not going to be 42.5 the next game that they play. I wouldn't be surprised to see in the upper 50s, low 60s. If this is going to be his role, the lion's share of the work, Carson Steele is not an option coming out of the backfield for the Chiefs. 5 of 12. He's a non-factor, essentially. He may get a carry here or there, but every team does that. It is going to be the Kareem Hunt show for the Chiefs in the backfield, and then it is going to be Kelce plus Juju, and then some of the secondary options for the receiving core.
Yeah, the Hunt's going to be a big one because obviously with the loss of Pacheco and how they would have utilized Pacheco, how he would have got them down the field, how he would have got them in the end zone, there's a number of things that they missed out on that Hunt showed that he can fulfill that role. You said it in the pregame show. That's why they brought him in. That's what they paid him to do, and he showed that he can secure his job tonight with 102 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. Now, as for kind of gauging props or players moving forward, I know there was a lot of upset people with any Olave props tonight, me being one of them, Joe Lisi being one of them. It was just tough to watch. Of course, congratulations to Rashid Shaheed to be able to be the guy leading the charts, but I mean, only 86, I don't want to say only, but only 86 receiving yards. Obviously, Saints offense struggled quite a bit there. You got Kamara right behind him with 40 receiving yards, so obviously that topped the charts on what you had going for your card, but Olave closed the night at 10 receiving yards through 2 receptions. This is somebody that we were keyed in on week in and week out to be a big factor for this Saints offense. Regardless, we saw the attempt to make some big plays, but nothing really connecting. How do you gauge moving forward here with what's going to happen? Is it just Kamara, or we have to figure out what's going to happen with the quarterback situation first?
It probably starts there. I like I said on the pregame show, I was pretty low on Olave coming into this game just based on the fact that he was going to be seeing Trent McDuffie out there. So it's a tough road for any receiver in that spot. They have to figure out what's wrong with Carr, because they said it was an oblique. How serious is it? What's it going to be for them? Because that impacts Rashid Shaheed. It impacts Chris Olave. Kamara might be the best option if Carr's going to miss any time. This is obviously just pure speculation. But Kamara would be the best option because they probably turn to a lot of the running game on the ground, and that's where Kamara would shine. The passing options, this has to be an immediate downgrade. This is the same thing when Tua Tagovailoa got hurt for the Dolphins. An immediate downgrade for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. It's the same essentially for Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave, but again, pure speculation because we don't know what's actually wrong with Carr at this point.
Yeah, great point out there. And regardless of the speculation in accordance to the injury, we just didn't see much ability of Carr being protected tonight to have time to air out the ball. So that's probably something else that might be problematic depending on their strength of schedule moving forward, which we know is going to get a little bit more complicated. So a few more things to look at here, but most importantly, it's time to look ahead. We've got a Sunday slate to start breaking down a number of quality games. And before we get to Sunday, we will touch on Thursday. So stick with Tom and I here on Pro Football Today. It's the post-game show here on SportsGrid TV.
Sunday Night Football, not really much of a matchup here. And the Bills looked so good up until this point. And, to me, it's probably like a one-off for them.
The basic thing you have to do against the Ravens, force them to pass and try to use their weapons downfield, get them behind. Because if you can do that, then it takes Derrick Henry a little bit out of the game. But if you get them with momentum coming out of the gate, getting a long touchdown run of the first play.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
I do a sliding DiVincenzo to the one. Obviously, Terrence Henry Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I do think they come back, and I think they win this game, but they've got to do it decisively. I think they've got to get that confidence back because they went out there, and like I said earlier, Kentucky almost beat Georgia. Kentucky almost did beat Ole Miss, and I think what you're going to see in this conference, if you don't play well and you're a top 10 team in the SEC, you're going to get knocked out by one of those top 25 teams in the SEC if you're not ready to play.
Powered by SportsGrid.
Welcome back into Pro Football Today, post-game show with Kasey Hudson and Tom Vecchio. Just breaking down the Monday Night Football matchup between the Saints and the Chiefs. Chiefs come out on top 26-13 and continue marching on. After breaking down props, angles, lines, and ways to gauge these two teams moving forward, it is time for Tom and I to move forward. We got a big Thursday night showdown going on between the Niners and the Seahawks. Seahawks proven to be a pretty quality team out there in the mix. Niners being a team that just selectively show up in certain quarters. They have been injury-ridden, and to a degree, they've started to get some key players back. People are complaining about what they're seeing out of Brock Purdy, but at the end of the day, In-Game Live Crew was just now talking about it. This could be more of a Kyle Shanahan problem. He's not being held accountable for his coaching of this team, at least thus far this season. Tom, what do you see in this matchup?
Oh, in this matchup, I'm immediately looking at the under 47.5. Short week, divisional opponents, as I'll say time and time again. This is a chance for the 49ers to have a no-nonsense game after the past 2 weeks where they've had the lead in the second half and then have collapsed. We just saw what the Giants did with a backup running back, Tyrone Tracy, rush for over 100 yards and tear apart the Seahawks defense. This is a chance for a big Jordan Mason game. Again, kind of a grinded-out divisional game, short week. So immediately, I'm looking at Brock Purdy under 253 253.5 passing yards, looking to Jordan Mason over 83.5 rushing yards. The Seahawks, they've allowed 553 rushing yards to running backs. That is the 8th worst in the league. A couple Monday nights ago, the game that we did with the crew, we saw Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery run all over the Seattle Seahawks. We saw Tracy run all over the Seahawks yesterday. This is a Jordan Mason ground game for the 49ers. That's where my initial look would be. Probably looking to take some unders on Juwan Jennings, the third-string receiver for the 49ers, considering that Debo and George Kittle are back. Probably looking to take unders on Tyler Lockett as well. I think they need to continue to feed the ball to Jackson Smith and Jigba and DK Metcalf. Metcalf's a player I don't like taking unders on just because he breaks off those big plays, but some of those other pieces I am certainly willing to take unders on for Seattle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was a key thing for you to mention is the collapse of the 49ers because, look, we did see the Seahawks start to climb back into a game versus a good Lions team, which means you cannot count them out. So if the Niners fall back at any pace, Seahawks can make them pay for it, and they'll take the chance to capitalize on that opportunity. I like Metcalf for over situations, but I'm right there with you when it comes to Mason on the ground and them at least sticking to some sort of script through 4 quarters of football. Anything else that you're liking in this game before we pivot to another hot topic in the NFL?
No, I would say like the under 47.5 is probably my favorite play. Like Seattle just lost at home. They were 7.5-point home favorite against the Giants, who were missing their starting running back and missing Malik Neighbors, their number one wide receiver, one of the best wide receivers emerging in the game, and they lost at home. Like they have to figure things out, and they don't want this to turn into a shootout with the 49ers. So it's all about defense, all about the running game on both sides on Thursday night.
Beautiful. And as Tom mentioned, Pro Football Today pregame show with me, Tom, Adam, and Dave will be covering that this Thursday. So make sure you join us at 7 o'clock to get that party started. As for an air attack, one name is coming to mind. Some people even dropped hints that he could potentially be MVP worthy. You've got Jaden Daniels, who's been putting on a show week in and week out, coming off a 238-yard passing performance. We know the Commanders like to air out the ball, and they have the ability to do so and consistently and clean-wise. They're taking on the Ravens. This could be a more interesting matchup than anticipated. Tom, what do you like and see in this one?
This might be the game of the week, right? This might be the game of the week. And getting the schedule earlier in, whenever it came out, you're looking at week 1, you say, oh, the Ravens at home versus Commanders is probably not going to be a good game. This is going to be awesome. And immediately, I kind of like under 52.5 just because I generally like taking unders. And I kind of like the Commanders at plus 6.5. The Ravens, they have been playing better, absolutely, over the past 2 weeks, but there's still some clear holes in their offense and just overall in their game planning. So I kind of like the Commanders. I kind of like the under. Obviously, there's no props posted yet, but getting into this, I think this could be another big game for Jaden Daniels. I mean, Joe Burrow tore apart the Ravens defense last week. 5 touchdowns, whatever it was, over 300 yards. I think there's a chance for him to continue to air it out, getting the ball downfield to Terry McLaurin. We saw him that deep pass to Jahan Dotson. This is like a big game for him to make his, I want to say I don't want to say etch it in stone. It's absolutely only week 5 or week 6, but rookie of the year, like this is the chance for him just to prove it. Leave no doubters anywhere. This is a chance to prove it. The Ravens side of things, I think just got to operate normally. Let Lamar do his thing, make these amazing plays, continue to get Zay Flowers, continue to get Mark Andrews more involved overall. And I think they win, but they absolutely do not cover.
Yeah, I definitely think this could be one of the games of the week. And as I kind of mentioned introducing this game, you said it, Rookie of the Year. He's putting a stamp on that one. But there's even some conversation of him potentially being MVP candidate. Do you think that that's quite far off for a kid like this? Or if the Commanders can pick up a few more W's, it can be something of quality to talk about?
MVP, we generally see go to quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks like I would have to double check the trends, but it's like quarterbacks that win their division, that make it X far in the playoffs, have like at least 12 wins, whatever it is. So him having an amazing stats and breaking records as a rookie generally isn't good enough. He would have to make it to a championship game, have 12 plus wins, like something along those lines. It's not out of the reach as of like that's still firmly on the table for the Commanders, but he would have to do those things on top of having great stats.
Absolutely. Now, another game that I want to pivot to is going to be the Cardinals versus the Packers. 2 really good teams here, and it can really go in either direction. We've seen the Cardinals pull off some tremendous games. We've seen the Packers keep quality games at their helm. Which way are you leaning when it comes to this matchup?
I think this is a pretty easy letdown spot for the Cardinals coming off of, I'm going to say, like a dramatic divisional win coming from behind against what's just called a superior opponent. As 7.5-point underdogs, wherever the Cardinals were, they beat this division opponent. I think it's a pretty clear letdown spot for them. I don't think they win this game. Do they cover 5.5? I don't know. If the number moves to 6, I'll have a little bit more interest in the Cardinals. Again, it may never move to 6, but that's where I would love to take them at 6. And also 49.5 just seems a touch high, considering we have seen the Cardinals offense fall flat at times. They got off to some hot starts against the Lions and the Commanders when they were both at home, and they kind of fell apart in the second half. So I'm interested in the Cardinals if the number moves, and definitely interested in under 49.5. Will we see Romeo Doubs back in the mix for the Packers after he was suspended last week? We saw, big games, especially Tucker Kraft, their tight end, continuing to get Dontavian Wicks involved and Jaden Reed. So the Packers have the options even if Doubs doesn't play.
Absolutely. Now, we have, or at least I got the email notification, but that's just because I'm a Florida girl. Jaguars finally pull off a win. Chicago Bears pull off a more well-connected, pieced together win. You've got Jags trying to build off of it. You've got the Bears trying to build off of it. But where does this one kind of lean more favorably? 9:30 a.m. on Sunday.
Yeah, over in London, I don't know how many times in the past, 7 years, 8 years I've been doing this, I said I really like the Bears, but it might be one of the times that I really like the Bears. The Jags squeaked away a win against a Colts team that did not have Jonathan Taylor and was starting Joe Flacco. So if you're going to give me the Bears, who looked good last week, granted it was against the Panthers, I kind of really like the Bears, even on the money line at minus 130. I still think there's some value there. So I'll certainly be looking there. I think a big Swift game is on tap. I think another big game for DJ Moore is on tap. We saw Joe Flacco kind of rip apart the Jaguars secondary. We saw Alec Pierce have a couple long shots down the field, haul those in. So DJ Moore's probably in for a big game.
Yeah, and I like that you pointed out the fact that the wide receiving group can get some yardage here versus this team. But most importantly, you and I both talked about this a few weeks ago. Caleb Williams looked good for what he had to weather behind that fractured offensive line. So his ability to build off of that, going against this Jaguars team, and I can say this much, Jaguars haven't been the best team when they play in London. They've kind of had some split results there, but they have definitely fallen apart or had to rally in the second half. There's something the Bears can try to take advantage of. So more games to get ahead to for the Sunday slate here on Pro Football Today, the post-game show. So don't go anywhere. We got another quick break right here on SportsGrid TV.
Sunday Night Football, not really much of a matchup here. And the Bills looked so good up until this point. And, to me, it's probably like a one-off for them.
The basic thing you have to do against the Ravens, force them to pass and try to use their weapons downfield, get them behind. Because if you can do that, then it takes Derrick Henry a little bit out of the game. But if you get them with momentum coming out of the gate, getting a long touchdown run to the first play.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
I do a sliding DiVincenzo to the one. Obviously, Terrence Shannon Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I do think they come back, and I think they win this game, but they've got to do it decisively. I think they've got to get that confidence back because they went out there, and like I said earlier, Kentucky almost beat Georgia. Kentucky almost did beat Ole Miss. And I think what you're going to see in this conference, if you don't play well and you're a top 10 team in the SEC, you're going to get knocked out by one of those top 25 teams in the SEC if you're not ready to play.
Powered by SportsGrid.
Welcome back into Pro Football Today, the post-game show with Kasey Hudson and Tom Vecchio. And just to make a quick correction, although I did say split results, of 11 games over in London for the Jaguars, they have fallen short to a loss 5 times. They have pulled off 6 victories, but then again, we're looking at completely different rosters, and we're talking about a former Blake Bortles era. So I just had to get that one out there, Tom. As we continue to roll through the Sunday slate, you know, we're talking about the Jaguars pulling off their first W. We've got to talk about all the teams here. So Colts, Titans. We've got some bang-ups when it comes to the Colts. I feel like we're saying that on a number of teams, but that's just the way of the play at this point of the season. And you got a Titans team that's got to figure out what their identity is, in all honesty. So what do we see in this one?
We have to remember that the Titans were on a bye this week. So the last time the Titans played was on that Monday night game against the Dolphins when Will Levis got hurt. So the question would be, is Will Levis good to go? If he's good to go, I like the Colts. If he's not good to go, I like the Colts. As I just said, Joe Flacco was good last week. Joe Flacco looked legit good last week. Granted, it's against the Jags. You want to take that with a grain of salt. It is what it is. But if Anthony Richardson is not good to go, okay, that's one thing. We get Joe Flacco. Will Jonathan Taylor be good to go? That's a different thing because Joe Flacco plus Jonathan Taylor plus the receiving core, Downs in the mix, Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce getting there. I'm interested in the Colts. I'm interested in the Colts no matter who's the starting quarterback. I don't care who's the starting quarterback for the Titans. We have seen the Titans defense be pretty solid this year. Granted, they haven't had the toughest test overall. They played at the Bears. They played the Jets. They played the Dolphins without Tua. So I think the Titans defense is good. It also hasn't necessarily been tested. I still like the Colts this week.
I love how you laid that one out. You actually had me hanging on, being like, oh, where's he going to go with this one? You like the Colts. You like the Colts. We're going with the Colts. And I'm right there with you. I mean, we just saw some really slow game planning when they were going on against their Monday Night Football game. It's just there's pieces that they don't have properly puzzled in to be a functional team. And when it comes to Levis, he's turning over the ball. There's a lot of issues there. And then backup-wise, it wasn't getting any better. So Colts it is. I like that take right where it's at. I don't even know how to get into this one, but Eagles, again, not really functioning with their top players at the moment. They've had some decent games, some decent pushback, but at the end of the day, they're just kind of fragmented as is. But you're going against a Browns team that's just as bad, so how do we even gauge this one?
There are some encouraging reports that A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith will be back for the Eagles. Remember, they were on bye this week, and they've been out for a couple weeks prior to that. Whether Lane Johnson will be back or not, yet to be determined. The Browns are a complete mess. So I certainly like the Eagles to win this game. Absolutely. 8.5 points is a lot. Again, the Browns are still a mess. Deshaun Watson is terrible. They're getting nothing in the air. Even though that David Njoku came back from the Browns, there's no production. And I won't bet on the Browns. That's what it comes down to. I'm never going to bet on the Browns as long as Deshaun Watson's the quarterback. Does not mean I want to lay the 8.5 points with the Eagles. So ultimately, the best spot I would have to look into it more is probably a Browns team total under. Like, they're just not moving the ball. We're seeing Deshaun Watson go out and throw 86 yards and a half. The entire offense is barely putting up 100 yards and a half. So Browns team total under, whether we get A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith fully confirmed back, that's a separate issue. But Eagles win this game, it's probably not going to be worth watching.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. I mean, the Browns are it's really hard to watch at this point. I was trying to put it off circling back to it, but I think we can either keep it plain and simple or just focus on Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay ends up flying out to New Orleans early because of the hurricane down in Florida. Bucks have a bad taste in their mouth from losing that game that was very much in their grasp. They do have their own long list of injuries when it comes to their defense, but as we just discussed, so do the Saints. Questionable quarterback position and a number of other guys that got banged up in this mix-up. But is there anything that you're looking at in particular with this one, or some props that you're going to start gauging when the numbers start coming out?
Yeah, ultimately, we want to see what the lines are once they're posted, because obviously they won't be posted until there's clarity on the Carr news. But as I said at halftime, that was a massive half for the Saints moving forward throughout the rest of the season. The Bucs are, and even if Carr was healthy, I probably would still look like the Bucs. They're coming off of that extra rest with a Thursday night game, like they get the mini bye. Again, like you said, they had that sour taste in their mouth. It's a divisional game. They got to show up. Coming off a loss, like another big Chris Godwin game, he's going to get into the end zone. That will happen. Mike Evans, we know that he does have some bad blood with the Saints. As long as Marshawn Lattimore's not there, not getting into a fight, he's not getting ejected. It would be a Chris Godwin game for me, but the news for Derek Carr is massively going to impact that line. I would not be surprised if he is out. We see that line sitting at 39, 38.5. Could be a very low-scoring game, which means it's going to be a ground game for the Bucs, and that means Bucky Irving.
I was wondering if you're going to go for the Bucky love yet again, but I completely agree. Mike Evans should be good to go. This team's going to continue to juice him up to make sure he hits another 1,000-yard season, but we talked about it in the pregame show. The tight end's ability to gain yardage versus this Saints team, and I think that the Bucs are going to pull on that script again. K-Don's been getting a little bit more trust when it comes to his role with this offense, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see his props be able to take off. I mean, I think the other week he was coming in at over 33.5 receiving yards. If he comes back at that total, it's something that I'll be looking at. Even if it gets bumped up to the 40s, it's something I'll be looking at because I think K-Don can handle that role and responsibility. Wouldn't be surprised to see a big game out of both Evans as well as Chris Godwin. You go for the Chris Godwin touchdown. I'm going to stick with the Mike Evans tutty because I just think that they always want to highlight one of the most underrated guys in the league. And I promise, guys, it's not just Tampa Bay talk. That's just my own personal opinion when it comes to Mike Evans and what he does for this matchup. But we'll keep an eye out on the injury reports. Hopefully some guys come back in queue for the Bucs. Having to head out early would probably affect some of the players that were sitting questionable to potentially make that comeback in, but we'll see what takes place with that. A few other games to get into here, but any final thoughts when it comes to Bucs versus Saints or props that you're going to eyeball outside of Bucky Irvin? Anybody on the Saints?
I mean, it'd probably be Saints team total under, especially if Carr's not there. Again, a little bit of speculation. Saints team total under.
All right, so we'll keep all that stuff in mind. We do have more that we'll do on the post-game show on Thursday night, and at least we'll have more numbers then, so make sure you guys are following Tom to keep track of all of that good stuff. More to get into for the Sunday's slate before we wrap it up here for Pro Football Today, the post-game show. A few more games to put into the basket, so make sure you guys don't go anywhere. Make sure you're following at SportsGrid on X across all social media platforms, and hang out with us because we got one more quick break coming up here on SportsGrid TV.
Sunday Night Football, not really much of a matchup here. And the Bills looked so good up until this point. And, to me, it's probably like a one-off for them.
The basic thing you have to do against the Ravens, force them to pass and try to use their weapons downfield, get them behind. Because if you can do that, then it takes Derrick Henry a little bit out of the game. But if you get them with momentum coming out of the gate, getting a long touchdown run to the first play.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take the room.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
If you're sliding DiVincenzo to the one, obviously Terrence Henry Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I do think they come back, and I think they win this game, but they've got to do it decisively. I think they've got to get that confidence back because they went out there, and like I said earlier, Kentucky almost beat Georgia. Kentucky almost did beat Ole Miss, and I think what you're going to see in this conference, if you don't play well and you're a top 10 team in the SEC, you're going to get knocked out by one of those top 25 teams in the SEC if you're not ready to play.
Powered by SportsGrid.
One more rally here at Pro Football Today, the post-game show with Kasey Hudson and Tom Vecchio, running through the Sunday slate because we got a lot of football to get into, but most importantly, do not forget to join Tom, me, Dave Sherapan, and Adam Kaufman for the Pro Football Today pregame show. We'll be running through all the things you need to know for the Thursday night matchup. So before we get ready to get out of here, Tom, a few more games to dive into, and I think it's only fair to pivot to some Bengals-Giants conversation. Why I think that's fair, you mentioned a few injuries for the Giants earlier. We've seen some decent movement from them offensively, but a lot of that hung on the shoulders of Neighbors, and then Bengals just have the pressure of consistently producing. So where should we gauge this one?
Oh, it'd be great to know if Malik Neighbors and Devin Singletary are going to play. I think a lot of people will look to Tracy to continue to have another big game on the ground. They'll see what he did last week. They will also look at the fact that we saw Derrick Henry have high 80s, forget exactly what it was, yards versus the Bengals last week. I would say we need to take that in context. As I always say, we need to look at the yards. He broke off a 51-yard run in overtime versus the Bengals last week. Prior to that, I should say yesterday, prior to the 51-yard run, he was being held to under 3 yards per carry. The Bengals' run defense had him bottled up. He only got there because of the overtime, because of the fumble, because of the missed field goal. So in reality, the Bengals' rush defense was pretty darn solid. So I'm not super high on Tracy coming into this week, and that's, again, assuming that Devin Singletary doesn't play. If Malik Neighbors plays, it is all systems go, ready to get him. We saw Jaden Daniels a couple weeks ago pick apart their pass defense. If we can get Neighbors fully healthy against the Neighbors against the Bengals secondary, load him up for 8 or 9 catches.
Absolutely, and I'm hoping that's something we get a chance to see because you pointed out Neighbors weeks ago in his production and him being a key factor for this Giants team. We saw him go off regardless of his opponent, so him going down or at least being shaken up with injury, he has a huge opportunity versus this Bengals team. I thought about the Commanders immediately when it came to that matchup. As for a team that's going to have a chip on their shoulder, but did we see the sexiest win out of the Cowboys yesterday? Who very much knows, and then they're going against a Lions team that's going to put them to the test in a number of ways. Can the Cowboys defense without key players show up and slow down this Lions team, or is it the Lions for the taking?
I think it's all Lions. It is all Lions. The injuries continue to pile up for the Cowboys. The Lions are coming off of a bye week. So we have a full rest from the Lions. The line is juiced in the 3 towards the Lions at -115. The Cowboys are +3 at -105. If I want to honestly hop in on the Lions now before the line moves to 3.5, obviously passing that key number of 3, it is all Lions. I think they exact some revenge that we saw late last season. It was week 14, 15, 16. I don't remember exactly when the Lions had that play where it was called back, so the offensive lineman didn't properly check in or whatever it was. I think the Lions exact revenge. Cowboys, injuries pile up. They're just too beat up. They don't have the consistency on offense. They don't have the run game. I think the Lions pound them. They win by 7 points. I think they cover the number easily.
I love any opportunity for a little revenge. And we'll just touch on it quickly before we wrap up here on Pro Football Today, the post-game show. We've just got a hint at this Bills-Jets game because we have a lot of Jets fans that just want to throw their season into the toilet after the loss to the Vikings. But it's not all doom and gloom. And you've got a Rodgers that took full responsibility for the turnovers. So how do we even start approaching this one before we break it down on Monday on Pro Football?
And both quarterbacks kind of got a little bit banged up last week, so we haven't seen great production out of Breece Hall or Braylon Allen over the past few weeks. So Josh Allen looked okay over the past 2 weeks, and I think that this is a spot for probably James Cook to continue to do his thing. We also need to know if Khalil Shakir will be back with the Bills, so that's what I'm focusing in on. A game we didn't touch on, don't watch this game. It's going to be Texans versus Patriots. If Nico Collins, he should be out for this game for the Texans. Steph Diggs going to score going up against the Patriots. I think he gets in the end zone. Or Tank Dell. One of the two is going to score.
Yeah, I love to continue to watch Collins go off. He has had a massive season thus far, but Diggs, I'm always going to go for that one. I love to at least pick the number 2 thought when it comes to getting into the end zone. But as for putting a bow on everything, that's going to be a wrap for Tom Vecchio and myself, Kasey Hudson, here on Pro Football Today, the post-game show. But as I've reminded you numerous times, you know where to find us on Thursday. It's going to be the pregame party with me, Tom, Dave, and Adam to prepare you for Thursday Night Football. And then you can also catch Adam and I on Sunday. He handles halftime. We wrap up with post-game together, so make sure you're staying tuned with us on all things on SportsGrid TV. And until Thursday, guys, we'll catch you guys later on in the week.